Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steven.
And I'm Robert.
And today we're going to answer the question, can you have fun playing any game? Well, what have you guys been up to this week?
You turn right.
Turn right.
Turn right.
Yeah,
You go first with Robert.
We talked about this last time.
I turned left. I turned left.
Just looks at Steven. What have I been doing? Man, that's a good question. I've been doing Spirit
don't
of Rebellion
know.
prep. That's what it
yes,
is.
Yeah. There is a
We're in full
awakening.
swing. We got our part of our dole this week. So we've just been processing, and it's
Producing this saga.
exciting times. Serious business. All the T's crossed, I's and lowercase j's dotted, making sure everything's looking good.
Can't forget the J.
That's the important key. of
People
ops,
forget
is
about
the J.
lowercase j's. And Q's have to be crossed too if they're
I feel like that
capitalized.
needs to go on your wall.
Right. Lowercase j's.
Did you do anything fancy this weekend?
Q's of the
fun?
capital? Oh, cross.
Make any bread?
Ooh, I made a stromboli. It was very good, one of my best. But I also went
stromboli.
to brunch. I'm on a quest in Tulsa to find the most optimal brunch.
Because generally, brunch is just, it's this thing
Isn't
that
that a
young
hipster thing to
kids
say?
do now, right?
Yeah,
I had never done this before, and then I
All the kids are doing
came
it.
to Tulsa, and then it's like, hey, let's go Sunday and do this thing. And most of the time, it seems to just be overpriced food and an excuse to have champagne on
Do you
Sunday.
want to pay $15 for pancakes? It's like,
Yeah. Why? No, I don't.
Why is the mixed fruit $6?
So if you can find something that is
Yeah, because they have to
reasonable.
have sweet, savory entrees, booze that's reasonably priced. That mimosa better be pretty pale colored, honestly. And, a couple other things.
Yeah.
But,
All right,
But I
and
found the
did you
new
find
leading
it?
candidate in Tulsa.
What is it?
Smoke, it looks like.
Oh, smoked brunch is great.
Smoke is very good.
you have
but
the
get there
bacon?
early. I had nothing with bacon, no. I did have brisket.
Good to know.
Wow.
On breakfast,
The bacon is
brisket breakfast
bacon
burrito. I can't say
great.
that.
3 Bs.
Yeah.
What about old Steve Marino?
Well, okay, so let's see. Friday, I feel like something happened that was important on Friday. But
You got married.
I don't remember it, so we'll
I
skip
turned 30 and got married and had a baby.
Important things that have happened
Wait,
is...
did you play Guild Ball on Friday?
Yes, that's the thing that I was thinking of. I actually have it written here, and I just didn't date it. Guild Ball, yeah. So Jonathan and I ran through kickoff for the first time.
Yeah, I overheard that.
It's the 2-player starter, and pretty impressive so far. Really fun. So
You
they
said you have fun?
yeah yes
Topical?
Actually, it's very topical.
Sounds like a caveat coming.
Well, it's when you're learning a game. Are you able to have fun? Maybe we should dive
Let's
into
save that question for the show.
I'll ask that to ourselves. But we were definitely learning the game, and you see glimpses of whenever you have mastery over the system, why these kinds of decision points would be interesting and fun. Obviously, seeing figures on a board with a football, soccer ball,
Football.
depending on where you are, seeing that moving around, having a game that involves kind of these older school fantasy concepts of like fighting and having abilities and stuff is great. But when you throw that element of real sports into it, and it's like, well, I can just go shoot a goal right now.
Yeah.
It feels a lot less forced, I guess.
Okay.
It feels like I already come into the game having something obvious to be doing. And then all of the extra stuff on the side can really just be what it is, like flavor and embellishment on the reality of a sports game that we're all familiar with, where you're trying to get the ball into the goal. So without that, it's just armies fighting.
That makes a lot of sense, because
yeah.
like in X-Wing, right, you don't know why these rebels and these rebels are fighting each other.
Look,
Or
they're
this-
fighting.
It's like there's no built-in, but it's like, oh, these two teams are playing in a sports competition.
Yeah.
And they happen to be like trying to kill each other as well.
Yeah, and that's cool.
just on the side,
And it actually, it makes that, I think it makes that action flow so much easier because everyone starts the game with a clear objective. So it's not like, who's going to shoot you first? It's not that alpha strike thing that we've talked about before. It's just, I'm going to go try to score a goal, and if you can't stop me, I'm going to get points.
Yeah.
And so you naturally have a conflict
And
going.
that's sports were born.
So it was really cool, yeah. It was really cool, and we'll continue to dive into that, I'm sure. And then we also did our final round of Destiny testing on Monday.
Oh my God.
Final round.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
And now Zach's
I was gonna say-
leaving. I'm taking time off, and then we're headed to Worlds. So
We need some help in ops, really.
yeah.
should reconsider
Well,
that.
we're just gonna kick our feet back and
See you later.
done all we can
Start
do.
drinking
If
some
ops is
tea.
working, then marketing's job is done. Woo! So we got the final round of Destiny testing done. That has been it's been a nice process to get back into the old school, just meet at a house, test some stuff. and see if you can break things.
Well, we haven't. I
Like
haven't.
a window?
I haven't been. I haven't been quote
Sometimes
unquote.
with those dice.
I haven't been competitive, or whatever that means, at a game with you and Tim at the same time since Monpok.
Yeah.
Since like 6 years ago. So that has been really fascinating because normally like you and Tim were on the Netrunner thing for a while, and I went over to X-Wing, and then
You're in Star Wars LCG, the Void for a while there.
Gaming diaspora here.
Yeah, but anyways, it's been a really cool process to jump back in with so many people that I grew up playing and testing and iterating with on these decks. So
Beautiful. And then finally, just a personal note, I've been talking about on the cast before, went and saw the Flaming Lips last night. And I got to tell you guys,
Did you bring chapstick?
if you get a chance, you have to go see this band.
Yeah,
must.
Straight up. I mean, just, it's miraculous, the show that they put on, just in the true sense of the word, show. And it was a 3-hour show, double encore.
Who opened?
Stayed up super late. Black Pistols Firing or something.
Oh, they are.
Also incredible.
Wow.
Really, really good. So,
Cool.
I mean, these guys have been doing it for 30 years now or something.
Whoa, I
Which
didn't know they were that old.
At that point, you have to, and they're an Oklahoma band, so
Whoa, didn't know that either.
the homegrown attitude
crowd.
towards Flaming Lips is like really strong. So it was a great crowd, great band, and I would highly suggest that experience.
Sweet.
That's
To
awesome.
you guys,
particularly,
What?
or anyone
since you're here,
listening.
yeah. And anybody
I'm
listening.
packing orders. What's going on?
No time for flame lips. I don't have enough chapstick for that. So for me, I did do Destiny testing. I also did some X-Wing testing this weekend. And then on Sunday, I did a insanely long Destiny session. Just really grinding it out
Just
with
the
Matt,
grinder.
actually. Yeah.
No surprises.
So kind of doing that. But that's what I've been focused on. I also had some bacon.
Bacon? Man, you're focused on that
Yeah, are
bacon.
you going back to the
Or
bacon?
products of
Well,
any kind,
the thing
really.
is, so you went to a place called Smoke and didn't get the bacon, which is fine, but you should
I
get it
didn't
next
know it
time.
was a focus.
But my friend Matt, who I was testing
Mm-hmm.
Destiny with, recently acquired a smoker.
What?
And so all day,
Matt. The Matt?
the Matt Phillips.
Whoa, I
Smoker.
was about to-
He has
you
VR and a smoker. It's over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just a crazy day. But and the yeah.
If he can start getting meat delivered to the house, I mean, it's just like, what
the
more
Matrix
do you need?
is here.
Yeah.
He started
Plug me
this.
in.
He started
Feed me the
this
bologna,
keto diet.
Yeah, keto.
Yeah, like
And-
which for those who don't know is
Ketosis.
just basically your body's entering starvation mode, right?
Yes.
Where
You're
it's
tricking
having
your
to-
body.
It's burning,
Metabolizing any tissue,
It's
yeah,
like
pretty much.
It's like training your body to burn
believe.
fat
I'm
before anything
I'm an
else,
expert.
because
Yeah.
you're only eating fatty meats, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems a little risky on the heart, but I'm no nutritionist. So
Yeah, I thought it was
not
like
endorsed
liver
here.
and kidneys.
Nobody's
that were
done
really
it for long
bearing the
enough to
brunt.
know. I mean, but they say that they did it back in the old days as cavemen and stuff.
the
but it's
olden
like,
times.
You know,
but they
it's-
weren't living till 90.
That's
I
what
don't
I
think.
always say.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is how we used to do it. And I was like, yeah, and they lived till they were 30.
There's a lot of things we used to do back then that aren't really advisable to do now. So I don't
Yeah.
know that that's a metric that you want to use for why you're doing something.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Well, and it's like they pin old health on that one fact. And it's like, well,
You were also roaming around.
you're
all
also
day.
like
Yeah,
eating
active
doing the
and-
work.
and no processed sugar
Yeah.
and anyways,
Most
not
of us
having
are
that.
way too
But he
sedentary.
smoked some bacon. Get it back to
Smoked
my
some
point.
bacon.
While we were playing,
I had some friends who did that one.
and it was literally the best bacon I've ever had.
How long
I
was
can't
it
get
smoked?
over it. I have no idea. It just showed up. I was really happy about it.
telling this for 3
So
years.
that was my week.
That sounds
We
good.
also did the AMA on Reddit.
We
Let's
did.
not forget. That's in everyone's
Let's not
week.
forget.
We did
Let's
that.
not forget.
So we're recording. So that was yesterday. So we did it on Tuesday.
Yes.
That's the safest way to say that, I guess. And it was great.
Yeah, went really well.
I was kind of freaking out beforehand because there's
Boy,
a lot
were
of
ya.
pressure where it's just like, here's this shotgun blast of questions from the public. It's like a press release, right?
Yeah.
You just like, hey. And but it was great. It was really awesome. It was cool to actually get real world opinions and questions right now.
Yeah.
Not filtering through any weirdness and just like, hey, it's an open dialogue. So hopefully we can do that again. That was really, it was fun and also enlightening because you have to know your brand and yourself and your company and your own.
Because people were throwing some bombs, let's be honest.
You've got to know everything.
Not a
so
lot, but
so it's a
some.
test. It's really a brand test. It's like, do we actually embody the stuff that we put out, or is it all just a facade?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you can answer a question in 2 seconds and hit the message every time, then it's because you're embodying and it's genuine.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's what came across, and it was cool how natural it was to answer those questions. So
Which is awesome. You always had an answer, and we're not typically getting the questions.
No.
Yeah.
Except for here on the cast now.
Yeah.
Which is, it's cool.
We did a lot of that, the brand workshops in the About page, where we kind of had that
Yeah.
existential moment for about a year. I guess it's a long moment.
The existential
It
year.
felt like many years, and I'm glad to know that seems to have really solidified our understanding of ourselves and where we are and what we're doing. So happy days.
Awesome.
Truly.
And you can obviously find that on Reddit and check it out.
Yes.
Our
If you
board
wanna-
games.
Our board games.
Our board games. And then just
We'll
search
probably
for
link
Team
to it
Covenant,
too.
yeah.
You can
That'd be a
link
good
to
idea.
that.
Check this
Link
link,
it
it's
up.
somewhere.
Link it.
That's not anywhere. It's probably just in the description. Well,
I never
let's
get
start
the
at the
point.
top, shall we?
Fun?
Fun.
What is that?
It's
What
brought
is
us
fun?
here.
No, we're not going to say what is
Ostensibly.
fun, but I am going to ask you
You know
both.
when you see it, it's like pornography, right? It's the old quote.
What an analogy.
yeah.
It's
Ooh,
like
let's
I
tie those
can't,
together.
I can't define
Man,
pornography.
I mean, it's starting there.
Steven said it, pornography is fun.
I can't define what it
Speak about
is.
brand.
But I know when I see it. Who said that? As a president or something? wasn't
I thought it was, some legislature, Supreme Court is what Jonathan's
right.
saying.
I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. That's for me fun. I can't really define it, but I know it when
This
I'm
isn't a
having
First
it.
Amendment.
When you're
Yeah.
feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. For the two of you, what makes a game fun?
So for me, really, my whole thing to start this off with is there a specific type of game or a type of experience that we all find fun specifically that other people would not? So for instance,
absolutely.
I really enjoy Netrunner.
Okay.
Why do I enjoy Netrunner? If I were to really dive into it, it's an element of freedom.
Yeah.
That, of course, runs throughout my veins for anyone who knows me. So the ability to make whatever choice I deem appropriate at the time, it's a very unrestricted system. So I can do 4 actions in whatever order that I choose.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And that then leads to various analyses of risk and what you as a particular individual are willing to put on the line, risk or not in any given situation. So it feels like you're very much free to do what you like and you're in control of the outcomes, even though you know that a lot of things are random. So that's why I like Netrunner so much. Are there people out there who don't like that? And the answer is yes.
Sure.
And they're not playing Netrunner, or they tried it and they said, this is not for me. Whether because it was too overwhelming to have that much choice,
Yes.
too overwhelming to think about having to master this kind of game, like a more structured system where you can make less choices that have maybe more impact, and that's easier and more fun to work through than this vast action system of anything goes.
I think with Netrunner, there's other things that make people potentially not enjoy it as well, which is, one, you get very plugged into it, and it's very, like, it overtakes where you're at least for when I'm playing it, which I love about it. But
It's enveloping, I guess.
it just, like, takes you in a way that something like chess might not, where I feel like
That's true.
I feel like I'm playing. Anyways, the other thing about Netrunner is it's really intense. Like, those moments where, like, they're running in the top of my deck, and it's like, if they get the agenda, they win. If not, and, like, that pressure, some people don't like that.
Yeah.
At all. And then the third element to me of Netrunner in particular, is just an example, is it is competitive.
Yeah.
And some people don't enjoy being competitive.
At all.
It just is
In
zero.
fact. Yeah.
And so a lot of the best qualities of Netrunner are things that would get people not into it.
Truly. So do you have other examples, like things that you find particularly fun? I have a great example for Robert. And it's like, Europa Universalis, Civilization.
Yeah.
These kinds of meticulous management games, I guess you would say.
Sure.
I don't know that I would enjoy, I used to play like Master of Orion, and I really enjoyed that for the epic space adventure. But I kind of always was like, I got to go to these planets and manage these peons, Like, I don't know, I just wish I could go get into a space battle or find amoeba or something. So that's an obvious like subset of fun, right?
Yes.
Just management.
It is.
Yes, it is.
But it is a subset of fun. But it's all, the different things that different games bring to the table. Not every game is going to check every box, but in relation to why I like those civilization, management, Europa kind of games, or why I didn't ever necessarily get hot and heavy with Netrunner, is that for me there are some things that are at confluence that will combine in such a way that some of their parts create something new that I don't like. So in the presence of Netrunner, it was both the combination of not only the high amounts of freedom of choice when you're taking your turn, but also the high amounts of uncertainty and unknowableness that your opponent is bringing to the table. Part of the thing that allows me to tolerate even disproportionately more complex games like Civilization Europa is that there are, and forgive me for not knowing the Netrunner cards and meta as well, but there doesn't seem like there are as many options for simply acquiring knowledge and discovery. Like in Netrunner, the best and most direct way of acquiring knowledge is to make that run. But that can be fraught with tremendous risk depending on what ice remains unrest.
So even gathering information becomes a risk.
Becomes perilous. And to me, being much like Stephen is well-founded and schooled in Eastern philosophy, I'm big into reading like old school political, if not militaristic, classics, Art of War, Prince, all these kind of things. And one of them, biggest of all, is like, know yourself and know your enemy. And if you can do both, you'll be victorious. But if you can only do one of those things, you're essentially playing 50-50. And to me, that is not something I want to do. I do not want to play 50-50. I'm not willing to make that bet. That's why I work in ops. So
I need 110 to 0.
Yeah, it either has to be all or nothing for me to really personally enjoy it. Not to say that there isn't enjoyment to be found when those personally unpleasurable circumstances arise, because even with my issues with Netrunner, personal as they are, there is still plenty of fun to be found in it, because when you do get to res that piece of ice and these triggers go off, it's just like, yeah, that was awesome.
Got him.
I built this system that worked.
Or yeah, you get to bust through some ice and get to the root of that server. It's exhilarating.
So, I mean, ultimately, I feel like everyone enjoys tabletop games in different ways and for different reasons, even with Netrunner.
Different types of tabletop games, too.
Or games in general, really. Anything that someone might enjoy for different reasons. So, what is it about games, like we were kind of hinting at some of them each, but what are the most critical elements of a game for you to enjoy it and have fun? And I think it'll be fascinating to see where we differ. In certain respects, where I know for me, theme and aesthetics of a game are impossibly critical. So much so that it's actually greater than mechanics.
That's interesting. Truly.
It is.
Theme
I don't
and
think I have that at all.
Because the thing for me, example I'll give is Tokaido, which is a very beautiful board game about going down this road in Japan. Mechanically speaking, the just core game is not. It's not that the mechanics are bad. Like there's a level it has to be.
They are, though. I mean, they're like not. It's
Well, they're uninspired.
Yeah, it's not a grand. Oh my goodness, this master design here. It's just that game doesn't work if it's just cubes and a board.
That's what I'm saying.
It's impossible.
Is that for me to have, I can have fun playing Tokaido because the visual, aesthetic, and theme is so connected to the mechanics themselves, where it's not about this complex system that I'm trying to manipulate to score points. But I'm really just trying to take an hour to just enjoy some time with my friends.
Take some vacation, yeah.
And it's not heavy enough for my mind to be distracted too much from it, so I can actually interact with the people on the board. Whereas with something like X-Wing, a lot of times I'll get done with a 90-minute game, and it feels like I just got out of the cockpit of a ship. Because I disengage, and I'm like, oh man.
Sweaty, tired, hungry.
My back hurts. So that's just one of the elements to me where it's like, if the theme is strong enough and strongly enough connected to the mechanics, the depth of the mechanics is less tied to my enjoyment than I expected it to be.
That you have me doubting all of the answers I was going to give with that Tokaido example, because ultimately
you have to begin with doubt.
I start with theme doesn't matter if the mechanics are good enough, because there's
that's why you like chess.
There's nothing about chess that is interesting to me with the theme. It's you could put anything on the board and I would love the game.
And the people who make chessboards frequently do exactly
that.
Exactly. Here's
that,
the shtick of this chessboard. Simpsons to Indian Mughals and all this kind of stuff.
Gandalf, etc.
Because I was trying to parse out why chess was so uninteresting to me as a kid and growing up, where I just wasn't ever really, whether it's the mechanics or the total lack of, mostly lack of theme, it just never really got me.
And and going back to Netrunner, I could play Netrunner skinned in any way. Doesn't matter what the theme of that game is ultimately to me. I don't need it to be sci-fi to love it. It can be Arby's theme, yes. I'm going to go make a run on that roast beef and cheddar.
Give me that big beef and cheddar.
Well,
make a run on that.
To that end, though, I mean, I think this is an interesting theory to flesh out a little bit, which is, can theme or mechanics be so good that the other part of that equation, theme or mechanics, assuming it's a two-part equation, which I think there's more to it than that. As an example, I think Netrunner would, for me, I enjoyed poker, and there's not exactly theme going on there.
Right, yeah.
But definitely, if mechanics aren't, it's a balance where it's like.
But see, I'm doubting everything because like I love Takedo, which breaks all of the rules for me.
Because the mechanics aren't mind-bending.
The mechanics are not mind-bending. It doesn't have an immense, if any, amount of freedom in the game. Like the level of freedom in that game is nearly zero.
Yeah.
I mean, at max in the so the expansions really
it's approaching zero fast.
Yeah,
the
very fast.
The expansions,
I mean, you are on a line.
There's 2 or 3 expansions that really fixed that, which is it made you want to make choices that weren't just the obvious choice.
Okay.
Where it's like normally it's like, well, what's the next available space? I'll take that one. 99% of the time. Versus like one of the expansions makes every spot do one of 2 things that you get to choose, and then one of them also like provides different not win conditions, but acceleration of points through various methods. So like it now becomes worth it to skip these 2 spaces to guarantee I get this thing.
But I still enjoy the base game of Takedo either way. Sure. So I've broken my own rules, and then on the other, it's like there's a certain the mechanics. If the word I always use is elegance, but I think that's overused and I use it way too much, and it doesn't exactly mean anything.
A synergy is what comes to mind to me.
This unity of
we're talking about different things, and it's sort of like an amorphous or variable Venn diagram in my mind, and there's probably something that actually is way more technically accurate, but that there's all kinds of aspects of a game that we've already mentioned, be it the mechanics, the aesthetics, the theme, yada, 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 list goes on, or freedom, etc. And the presence and the volumes proportionate to each other can create a new sum that creates its own unique experience. So it could be a game with a little bit of freedom, but because it is so richly thematic and so neatly mechanical, you don't mind it over much because there's something about the simplicity of the mechanics, the beauty of the elegance, and the relative tightness. Think like Love Letter. It's just like this is a very straightforward game. It's not checking a lot of boxes hard, but it is still disproportionate to others. One of the best games I've ever played.
It's one of the games you have the most fun playing.
For sure.
And I think going back to mechanics though, so I'm thinking about chess, right? And I've been trying to wrestle with chess for a long time. Reality is, of all the themes in the world, right? So if you're talking about theme and flavor, every person has different themes that they're interested in or not, right? Whether it's Eastern or whether it's space or Star Wars. Westerns. And so there's obviously boxes that can be checked for certain people, Arby's, fast food, whatever, it doesn't matter, that can be checked in theme that would get someone interested in the game. And then I think about chess, which is almost purely a mechanical game that is enjoyable to some people, not enjoyable to others. But then I think, well, let's take my favorite theme ever, Star Wars. Let's apply it to chess, right? Let's say all the pieces were all the front row stormtroopers. It's like Vader and Palpatine and whatever is the things.
That's pretty cool. Sorry. Also a fan.
Fisher Random Star Wars chess.
If you had that, right? I still would not be that interested in chess.
Interesting.
Because the mechanics don't particularly appeal to me. Fisher Random is way more exciting.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually interested in that.
Let me lay this on you though, because as we're talking about this, something is becoming quite obvious to me, which is I think there is no amount of theme and art that would make up for awful mechanics.
Or mechanics you just don't enjoy.
See, that's what I'm saying though. I can't think of an instance
trying to find out
that if a system just doesn't work very well, and that is when the system gets in the way of any fun you might have, even because of the theme or the art or whatever, when you're having to pay so much attention to how it's not working and you have to look up rules and it's overly complex and you have to look up this keyword and those kinds of things, I don't think a lot of people are having fun, capital F fun, looking through the rule book, right? So it seems to me like with games like Love Letter, the best games are those that have that lightness to them, so that those who are going to enjoy the game and have fun playing the game can get right to it and can get into it and feel it the whole time.
But I got to foil you. I mean,
foil me.
I had an intensive learning curve on that Europa Universalis game. I was playing it 3 or 4 days before I started to get, and again, intensely, probably like 6 to 8 hours each day, before I started getting my first inclinations and things starting to fall into place of like, kinds of things. So needless to say, hopefully I'm not as big of a dummy as it was actually in front of me the whole time and it just took me too long.
Yeah.
But that game is complex. Was
it fun to learn it?
It was, but
Was it satisfying, I guess?
It was because I kept doing it, but at the same time, I have to at least concede the fact that I was pursuing it almost to its own end, because part of what got me on it was somebody was talking about it on Reddit, and they mentioned specifically how awesome, intense, complex, rich, etc. But then also they did mention the learning curve and that it's super steep. And so I was intrigued by that element alone, so it's like, okay.
I'm going to try to get to the top of this.
Dumb learning curve is part of the appeal here, oddly enough.
I want to point out, too, I think, so bad mechanics, and that's a totally different episode of the podcast.
You talking about Mount
I think mechanics can be bad enough that regardless of any other factor, it won't be enjoyable to any or most people. But I do think, speaking to your note of lightness in a game like Love Letter, while I don't enjoy heavy games, I usually don't like games that last more than an hour. I don't like games that have 200-page rule books. Right. I don't like games where I'm having to work to play the game. But I know plenty of people who actually do. And so I think that's where, to me, mechanics are a part of the enjoyment of a game. Some games, like chess, have small theme, or very little theme, if any at all. But they are still appealing to us. The mechanics are so good for some people that they can enjoy playing that. Versus the theme of some games like Takedo, which to me is so good that it's enjoyable to do. And there's kind of a balance going on where I think about X-Wing as just a mechanical nature. I think it's a very well-constructed game from a mechanical standpoint, or Netrunner. And then I start applying other themes to it, and it gets weird for me.
Yeah.
It's like, if this is like police cars, it's like, I'm not going to jump on that. So I actually think, for me, at least, to have fun playing a game, I have to enjoy the mechanics, and there's parameters to that, right? It probably doesn't take more than an hour. There's not too much rules look up. You can dive into the game. There's exciting moments. You can probably win. Someone can win. Right?
Imagine that, a win condition?
Some people like cooperative games where it's
That's
telling a
true.
story, RPGs, where there's not typically like a winner,
Yeah,
but I
good
enjoy
point.
those way less. But I know some people really enjoy those, which is cool.
Yeah.
And also the theme has to like appeal to me in some way for me to really get hooked and enjoy a game.
All right, so let me go here. As far as it seems like we're pretty much agreeing that fun is a subjective feature.
Right.
There is not a game that objectively is fun to everyone because it possesses the qualities that create fun.
Correct.
It's how we interact with them and our personal experiences and beliefs and thoughts and whatnot that make a game either fun for us or not. Now, here's the question, though. If fun is subjective, I have been in a lot of situations where I might be playing a game that I would not usually find fun. But I am able to recenter myself, change my perspective to get in the mindset that would make that game fun, and then I'm able to enjoy it.
Yes.
For instance, a game like Terraforming Mars is the kind of game that I look at and run away from immediately. It's like the amount of numbers and tracks and weirdness on the board is insane. However, sitting down and actually saying, this isn't a game that I would normally play and enjoy, but not only am I going to give it a shot, I'm going to find a way to make this fun, and I'm going to get in the head of a meticulous, planet builder, and I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah.
So is there an onus on a player to find the fun in a game that they might not usually find enjoyable? It's kind of like listening to new music,
I think a really good example of this is a month or two back, we had a moment in the office where our electric went out.
Yeah, we did.
And so we were hanging around, and it was like, well, we can't work because our computers aren't working. So we decided to play New Angeles. We all were interested in playing it, and you have to have 4 or 5 people, I think, to play it. So we decided to play, and the example of this is more about Robert, who I don't think naturally, for whatever reason, you found a way to have fun. In a game where it may not have been the theme that you were super into or the mechanics that you were super into.
I can explain it. I didn't know anything about New Angeles or what it was about, so literally just coming to the table and having some expectation of performing. And so for me, that is, I have to eschew all my personal hangups about knowledge and just dive in. And so that means I essentially have to have a c'est la vie mentality about everything that's happening in the game and do stuff just to see what happens. And eventually that becomes fun because it's like, look what I made happen.
Because you're gaining fun in just like learning and understanding how
and
things
knowledge
are
at the
working.
same time, honestly, which is rewarding to me.
But you knew you had to change your attitude.
Correct.
In order to find an enjoyment out of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you ultimately found a way to gain.
Yeah,
Sure
a little bit of
did.
chaos was
Yeah.
introduced, which some other players were less inclined towards. So their fun was reduced, your fun was
Maximized.
gained.
Ooh,
And that's
I
one of the
had a good time.
interesting things about competitive games,
Yeah.
something that we have to deal with all the time is what is fun for one player is actually detracting from the fun for another. So who gets the spotlight on
Whoever's
that?
playing Control.
Well, or combo.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about that for me, my example in that respect is a game that my family plays a lot since I was like 6. I've been playing Pitch. It's an
I
old
love
school
Pitch
game,
so
4
much.
players typically, very specific rules.
Folk game, really.
It's really just
Country
an
game.
old
Up with
country
cornhole.
game in
Probably
Oklahoma.
came from the Britons, I would imagine. It's kind of like the, hearts and spades and all of that kind of stuff.
But as you imagine, at 10, I got into Pokemon and I got really serious about it and started playing a lot and iterating and stuff. So by the time I'm like 16 or 17 and playing Pitch, just because we used to have big family meetups on Sundays and we'd always play Pitch. At some point, you start to you fully grasp the game. And I can play Pitch right now and literally I never have to make a decision. Because I know I've been in every position, whether it's the bids to get the hands that you want or every decision in that game, I've literally, since I was 16, so now 11 years, just none decisions when I'm playing Pitch.
Read the book.
Which is honestly one of the things that makes games fun for me is the exploration nature of the game.
And I think there's something left to discover, a frontier of sorts.
And that's what, and the hard part is to balance that against the fact that I also, once I have gotten to that point, get bored with the game. So that's what makes expandable games so appealing to me, is it's the same system that I can continue to hone and master, but it's continually shifting.
Yeah, shifting and changing.
But going back to the Pitch analogy is like, I've been playing Pitch for 12 years, learning and exploring nothing. Except for I start getting crazier and crazier. And you have a teammate normally, and Tim's normally on my team. And it's just like, there's a thing called shooting the moon.
Yeah.
Where you just go all in. And it's like, we'll randomly just be like, shoot the moon on like a 50-50 hand. And then you just win. And then you just walk away. And people are like, why did you do that? That's anyways.
Yeah.
So I think in that respect, like, I'm playing Pitch to basically enjoy time with my family. And so regardless of if I'm enjoying the actual game or not, I'm deciding to enjoy that experience.
But would you say Pitch is fun for you?
Pitch is not fun.
That's the incredible thing. I think it's going to be very hard for us, and this is a bit of a breakthrough potentially. It's going to be very hard for us to divorce the human element of the game from the mechanics of the game.
Well, I think the human element is important just for what you were talking about, which is a player being able to shift the perspective and enjoy the experience regardless.
Oh, man.
Because like
Spoiling all that, yeah.
in the New Angeles, it's like Robert literally, I have never seen him have as much fun as when he was crushing Ben's dreams. See, he's even still having fun because of that moment.
Well, but
It's a bit absurd,
the
really.
question then becomes: would I have been having as much fun if Ben hadn't had such a visceral response to it? Probably not.
No,
I mean, I would have enjoyed it
That's a control player.
to a certain extent.
Right there.
I would have enjoyed it to a certain extent because what I was doing was pretty fun. I was actually outside of that last turn. I was about to win because it was just like, oh man, everything's disruptive. I'm creating my own openings and walking right through them. But what really stole the show was like that human element. But at the same time, there are plenty of games that have this much human element to them.
And can still be fun.
And can still be
Without a
fun.
doubt,
And
yeah.
so that
Like-
kind of takes me back to, harking back to that first thing I was kind of saying, which is like, it's just a myriad of variables. And it's like the presence and how they're manifesting within the matrix of all of them is kind of like where you end up. And sometimes it's the wrong mix and it tastes bad. And it's like, no, this is not a very good quality game. I don't want to play it anymore. Let's put down this game with the 200-page rule book and pick up Love Letter. And this is way more my cup of tea.
Can you then adapt your psychology to have fun playing any game?
Yes.
Think so?
Well, I think you can.
I
Whether or
believe
not
so, too.
people do or recognize that or should, those kinds of questions is another matter.
But that's like, if that's true, if you literally can have fun playing anything and potentially extrapolate that, have fun doing anything, right? We're getting like the karma yoga kind of stuff with Indian philosophy.
Yeah.
Then do you owe it to the group to play in a way that is fun for you and for them? To basically not say, I don't like that kind of game, but to say, sure, I'll play with you, and even though it's not something that you would enjoy, you're going to still find a way to have fun doing it.
Well, I think that you have to apply it to the group that you're playing with, because for my family, I'm willing to do that with pitch.
Because they wouldn't, the combined fun of everybody at that table is as high as it can possibly be when they're playing pitch.
Absolutely.
Because everybody is enjoying pitch, even though I guess you're the only person who technically isn't. But you couldn't do that same thing with, like, you know, Settlers of Catan or
that's where it's like, I'm not.
Catan's
Catan's actually another family example but with pitch, I'm not enjoying pitch. I'm enjoying the human-to-human interaction that is created by pitch. Like in X-Wing, I'm actually enjoying X-Wing. I'm also enjoying the human-to-human interaction, but moving my ships around, getting ships in arc, playing that game, that is fun to me. Or like Netrunner searching for agendas or building servers and that kind of thing. Versus pitch is, in all the value I'm possibly getting off of it, is from the human-to-human interaction. But conversely, if I'm playing a game like Destiny, which I very much enjoy actually playing the game, this kind of leads where I wanted to go, which is, what happens when all of a sudden the way you're playing is removing my ability to play Destiny in a way that is fun for me?
Yeah.
And also removing my ability to, because like a random stranger who I play in a tournament, I don't have any actual, like with my family, I'm willing to set things aside and like make the group have fun. But if I sit across from a stranger at a tournament and you're playing Destiny in such a way that is specifically unfun to me, how do you deal with that? What do you do in that situation?
It's a great question. I love this question.
It's a great question, and I'll foil it with a kind of real-world anecdote in that there have, through various times and cultures, been people in the most brutal of games and awful, but in essentially warfare, where somebody is playing outside the rules as we have traditionally known them. And there's essentially like, you know, a ruffling of feathers and, you know, umbrage taken at this upstart beating me at this game because he flanked me or he attacked me from the rear. And we had rules here, or, you know,
in a lineup in
an awful contemporary sense, it's like they're using vicious weapons, chemical weapons, that kind of a thing. But it's sort of like as a parallel, it's if your opponent in a game setting is coming at you with something that is disrupting your pretext of how you're trying to play the game, and with it you're fun to play the game, perhaps. To me, much like in a warfare scenario, it's sort of like maybe you're just playing the game wrong because like you're pursuing a win. Are you not here if it is a game that allows for a win condition? Are you not playing to win at least in a nominal sense just by approaching the table? Therefore, why would you ever have any particular note on a macro philosophical level of somebody playing outside of convention?
Well, I think the real trouble comes in when there's a balance of, if I'm playing Destiny and you show up with something that I was aware of, that exists in the game that I can see, and it's just a method. Like I think about Burn in Game of Thrones, first edition in particular, where I played Burn for a long time, and I would very much I would let my opponent play the character, and then I would brutally just kill them, and then it's like I don't ever get to use my best character because they're just dying to burn, and that can be really frustrating. That's the control player coming out. But at the same time, I think where probably a lot of frustration is born, at least in tabletop, is when you have a game like Netrunner that at one stage of the game, this is how we play the game, and this is how the cards have come out, and here's what we're using. And then a year later, that game looks very different. I know X-Wing has gone through a couple of these stages as well, where it's like, this isn't the X-Wing that I necessarily got into. And so that's when I think development of a game can have a huge impact on how much fun people have, especially when they feel like they had something that they had a lot of fun doing,
100%.
that got removed from existing. And now I can't have fun doing it because I show up and everyone's on this list.
Or is it more accurate to say that they now need to look for a new way to have fun? Not that they can't have fun, but now the onus is back on you. It's like your methodology was antiquated. The people who are into longbows are really upset with the crossbow people. And it's
Sure.
just like, man,
Yeah.
you guys are ruining our longbow
Well, it's like
party.
I was really into sword fighting, and then you brought guns.
Then you brought guns, yeah. It's
But-
like,
Okay, so we play a game, an old Warcraft 3 map. It's called like Blades of Justice or whatever it is, or
Right.
the Blades of Gore.
Blades of Gore 2,
So-
maybe? I don't know.
Is it go- so here's the beautiful thing about that game is that, to your example, we're sword fighting. And that's the game that we've agreed upon.
Yes.
And there are 20 different swords that we might use, right?
At least.
If there was a gun option in that game, I think it would destroy the game.
Correct.
Right?
I don't think we would play it in the first place.
We wouldn't play it at all. It's like,
Yeah.
this guy's got a gun and he just shoots me. And so we've broken, again, we get back to those pillars, we've broken the fundamental agreement we had when we came into this game. It's very similar to me where if 90% of people playing Game of Thrones are in it because they want to see the characters and want to have challenges and have this kind of, skirmish going on between them, and 5% of the players really enjoy burning those characters down, then you should cut burn out of your game. Like,
As a designer.
as a designer,
Yes.
if you're saying 95% of your player base is going to have no fun because 5% can have fun,
Yeah.
the math doesn't make sense.
Well, and I think it's slightly less stark than that.
Maybe.
But the reason
Pinching for hyperbole.
Sure. Well, the reason is because the reality, as we've witnessed here, is that everyone enjoys different things. They have fun doing very different styles of game, very different themes. But within a game, you have especially these more expanded, built-out games like Destiny or X-Wing or Netrunner. There are a lot of different ways of playing the same game. And I think the balance for me is in balance, which is losing one of your favorite characters isn't oppressive. Losing all of your favorite characters all the time. So the reason I say that is like in that particular example with Burn in Game of Thrones, where it gets off the tracks is when one of the options becomes too viable that the other options aren't.
I'll get you. I gotta jump on this. I've been thinking about this and feel very passionately about it.
We've been coming to this.
There is no reason that a game should give players the option of things that are going to eliminate fun for an opponent. I can think of a number of ways to play Game of Thrones that I don't feel are unfun for me at all. Like, you bested me on challenges by having knights running around. That's what I expected. That's incredible. You have knights and that's cool. You bested me on power challenges because you're a king and you came through here, and that defeated my rush strategy, and that's fine. But there are specific archetypes, and we call them generally control and oppressive control, jail decks, like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That literally,
Choke.
the only fun in these decks, choke is a great example. That archetype just shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
There's no reason to justify an archetype that is
not allowing
deliberately
your-
taking away
Yeah.
from an opponent's fun.
Yeah, anecdote I have to the exact note is many years ago, back before the Game of Thrones reboot, probably most success I ever had at a tournament was at Gen Con. Brought a well-honed Lannister Power Behind the Throne intrigue deck, so focused on intrigue, and then getting in to the final round before the cut. Of course, I sit down opposite somebody who is running Stark Winter with no intrigue whatsoever as possible unless you have a specific countermeasure to this card, which I didn't. And so immediately it was just kind of like, well,
Oh yeah, it was the
game,
card that said you can't do intrigue
can't do
challenges.
intrigue
Catelyn.
challenges.
Catelyn,
And I
right.
had nothing to specifically remove that because, again, intrigue focused. So I understand that sentiment, but at the same time, it's still a divide for me between the onus on a designer to create and maintain a game state/meta that allows for the openness of play and discovery and all that kind of thing. Vice, once it is out there, the players are it's essentially fair game. It's a free-for-all now because the cards have been made, printed, and as long as they aren't errated, per the previous podcast, all these control methods, errated, banned, restricted, etc., you should come prepared. You should anticipate those weaknesses they had. I knew that was something that I could well face in that tournament. I thought, it's probably, what are the odds? And it happened. And that's just why, to me, even in losing that particular game, it was fun to after playing so many games that I probably should have lost, but people were also so unprepared for what I was bringing, that suddenly now I just get to sit here and let crummy Starks beat up on this Lannister intrigue thing, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm done, pass. I'll spend some gold, and that's my turn. But I was still having fun seeing this guy trounce me with what he brought.
And I think
it still felt within the game for you.
Yes.
Like a fitting thing for the game to have.
I think there's definitely a line between even burn as an example here and not allowing an opponent to even play the game. When control gets to the point where you can literally stop your opponent from playing, like when choke is strong enough or burn is strong enough, and that's what one of the biggest like elements of a game that can go off and make it not fun is when control is too much. Because if you sit down and then you don't even get to play, no one's having fun not playing.
Look at why Faust was such a bad deal for Netrunner. It's because everything was built around me playing the game as a corporation with ice and agendas and these kinds of concepts. And now I literally just cannot do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's just, so I think that's where a lot of games get into trouble, is you start out and you have a contract with your players with a core set and maybe conceptually what the game's gonna be like. And this is what we do to attract players who will find that fun, right? So, I love those kinds of things. I play a couple of demos. This is incredibly fun. Love it. So then you get this player base of people who are agreeing that this is what the kind of experience we want to have. And then you slowly release cards that start to enable other kinds of players to come in and say, yes, this is what you were expecting out of this game. However, I'm going to take that away from you. And so now it's not fun anymore. So your entire player base has a problem.
Yeah.
And so I just think that it's easier to cut that section out than try to have it exist, but balance it just right where it's never good enough.
Well, I think it's important for designers/developers to understand the game they're creating and what makes it fun and why people are playing it. Because every game cannot inherently serve every player. Because if you find that game, good
you
luck.
need to focus.
So
as a game
choosing
designer.
even with, again, I'm going to beat the Thrones example until it's gone, which is in the core set of Thrones, you have all of the elements that they seem to be building at this point, which is you have burn. It's a known part of the game, and there's known, the other part of that is every faction has ways around it. They have, and that is also important, where it's like no matter what you're playing, if I can use the fundamentals of the game like Netrunner, that's what happens when Faust came. That's why it's such a problem. There's no amount of fundamentals of the game I can use in this situation to get out of it. You literally just silver bullet through all of the things that have come before this, which is a problem.
So fun can definitely, me having fun can take away from your fun.
For sure.
And I think the real question at that point is, what are we supposed to do about it? Not allow me to play a certain way so that
we should stage a sit-in.
Always have the fun? Or does it even come down to, if I'm getting beat by something like burn, am I supposed to change my psychology in the way that we talked about and see it as fun now?
It's a very noble thing to do.
Or is it not even possible to have a game that doesn't have... Because people come into card games from these old tropes from Magic the Gathering. Control and aggro and rush and all these kinds of things. There's no reason that all of those have to exist.
Correct.
We could all be playing Rush, and Destiny sometimes feels like that. It's like, let's just go as fast as possible. What if we put no dice removal cards in the game?
And I would say, even with all that being said, and I very much agree, even in spite of being able to find ways to enjoy an unpleasurable experience in real time while playing a game, that there is still some thing to be said about, I just brain farted. What were you talking about?
The Rush, the archetypes.
The archetype of rushes, but that they wax and wane. And with games that aren't as tightly focused as relatively simplistic ones that are going to drive people away as a result, but like chess, simple basic mechanics that in their nuance can get elaborate and complex, but ultimately you know how all the pieces move in that kind of pretext. But if you have rush and control and yada, 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 just because cards are not all created equal with their effect within the presence of the meta, you're going to have to essentially deal with it to a certain extent and just understand that sometimes rush is going to be better than control, and sometimes burn's going to be better than I don't know, big beefy armies or whatever other things you got.
Well, and I think we had a interesting conversation in the car back from DEFCON on this, and I know you're even here saying we'll get rid of the 10% of burn so that it's just gone and out.
It's a possibility.
It's definitely an
something
option.
worth exploring.
I think the careful thing, and this is what X-Wing did for me, which was I stuck in. I still have fun enough, and it's because it never crossed too much of a line, which is the first wave came out. You're playing X-Wing. This is what you're expecting about X-Wing. This is what you've come to know and love about X-Wing. Then the second wave comes out and you get the Falcon. It's this big body with a 360 arc. It's like maneuvers literally don't matter.
Yeah.
You can shoot me, I can shoot you.
Yeah, they
and
were going like back and forth on the back side
it
of
was
the
a
board.
double Falcon on the board,
yeah.
up and down the board, up and down the board. And it's just like no decisions. There's no way for me to outmaneuver this. It's where right now the bombs that have been very popular with Miranda and the K-Wing and stuff are, where there's just, if I'm playing the style I like to play, there's no way for me to outskill you in this moment. Even it's just such a bad match that I don't even know how to outskill you.
Yeah.
There's no, it's just.
Isn't that where we get right back to it? Is it we come to think of these developing games as expanding and branching off into different styles of play? Do they have to? Chess didn't have to.
Well,
right? That's the thing. Is like it's not. You don't introduce a new piece that has a zigzag
but
pattern.
chess wasn't being developed by a company for proprietary reasons.
That's true.
But I think
It's true.
why
Can you expand a game without hitting all the archetypes? Right?
This is why I think I like the
Does it get boring?
the X-Wing example, which is even though turrets existed, and I'm not a huge fan of turrets ever. It's not my style of play. I don't like what it does to the game. So on. So I could go on about that. It only is a problem when the strength of turrets starts not allowing me to play the game the way I started playing it when it first came out and the way I enjoy it. If I can play what I like to play and have a reasonable chance against a turret, the idea of a turret doesn't bother me. I like even the mobile firing arc where you can spend an action to move your turret. It's that there's literally just none way for me to play around this or use what I'm doing to like outskill you. There's just not a chance. So
Yeah.
like that is when it becomes, even with Burn, if there's none way for me to play around Burn or to best Burn with however I like to play, is when it's crossing that line for me.
Yeah. But side note, what if we just took turrets out of X-Wing? Does it
I would be
suffer?
okay with it.
Right? but
affect
isn't
my list.
isn't that ultimately kind of the main point? Is that can't we just play a skirmish dogfighting game and leave it at that? Why do we need turrets?
Well, the reality is, I think there are players that play X-Wing even now that enjoy playing the bomb droppers, the turrets, the jousters.
And they wouldn't be here if those didn't exist.
I don't know if they would be or not.
Or maybe we need to make a game for them.
Which is fine, but I think
You know?
that's where, to me, it's if you can make turrets in such a way that someone else enjoys the game as well, but it doesn't hamper my ability to enjoy the game, then I'm okay with turrets. But if it literally destroys the other 90% of people who were enjoying the game in this way, and you can't do that anymore, like I think Faust with Netrunner is the perfect example.
Yeah.
It just crushed the way people fell in love with Netrunner, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a real problem. And turrets got super close in X-Wing.
Yeah.
Like, it's far too close. Like that, the double Falcon.
So then it just does come down to balance. I mean, it comes down to
What was the answer to Faust?
there isn't one. MWL, like make it cost a whole lot. I mean, so there are answers, right? And this is kind of the Damon Stone take, if you will. That players should be running Project Junebug and cards that eliminate cards out of your opponent's hand and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it's like, kind of, but. First of all,
You're not wrong.
That's not
there
how we-
wasn't enough, and it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't technically possible, even though it was feasible. But more specifically, like throughout the game's history, there was only a certain tiny percentage, not tiny, maybe 10 to 20%, of people who really loved the idea of playing a game of Netrunner where I'm trying to get the cards out of your hand. Most of us were more interested in the resource exchange and risk management that it was with my credit pool and your credit pool.
Yeah.
And so you strip that out of the game. Sure, I could adapt, potentially, and start playing damage decks and whatnot. I didn't play damage decks for 2 years. Not me personally, I did. But
I was gonna say, I feel
if
like
I
you did.
didn't do that for so long, then why am I now supposed to start doing that? That's just for me to stay in the game, but if I'm not having fun playing it, then why do I have any interest in adapting
Sure.
in the first place, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm not going to lose my fun and adapt. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So it probably comes down to balance, and it comes down to can you get enough concepts in a game that give the most amount of people, the most amount of fun, without stepping on each other's toes?
It's very difficult.
I mean, I have to imagine that's the whole
And,
process.
and I think that's the inherent nature of balance and also focus, which is a game can honestly only appeal to so many different types and offer so many different styles and still be balanced effectively. Because there is a style of play that's like, I'm trying to trick you and get cards out of your hand in Netrunner, and I'm not trying to escort agendas out of a server and like all this weird stuff. But that is not the style of play that got you all the players in the first place.
Yeah.
Just
and
period.
You know, look at Netrunner. That's a super, or a Love Letter. That's a super focused kind of game.
It is offering a singular experience.
And so,
16
if
cards.
you love Netrunner, you will always love, Love Letter. If you love Love Letter, you will always love Love Letter.
Correct.
And even so much so that when we played the different versions of it, with like Zeros and Golems and stuff,
Not as good.
hated it.
Yeah.
Have you played the Batman version?
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want
He's
to.
a purist.
I've already gotten exactly what I want
It would violate his code.
out of Love Letter. Like,
I will
it
just
can't be
mention,
improved.
I will just mention that
It can't be
the
improved.
2 or 3 small changes they made to the Batman version, I'm all about. I'm all about.
Dubious
There's
at
so
best.
as an example, before we cut this topic in half, as an example, whatever the card is where you compare values,
Yes, Baron.
the Baron.
Oh, right.
In the Batman version there's 2 different versions in the deck. One is if yours is higher than mine, and one is if yours is lower than mine.
Okay.
So it just
I see.
it makes it way more difficult to manage that.
So, to end this thing off then,
All right, conclude
I think
me.
there's a couple of important notes throughout this thing that I have recognized. One is that when you find yourself in a situation with people and you're playing a game that you might not find fun, rather than being the person who says, I don't want to play that game because it's not fun, even though the rest of you do, try to just take a different perspective instead. I mean, that's only good for the hobby and for everybody else involved in your play group. Just try to find the fun in that game. You know, if it takes you, we have a lot of role players probably listening. You assume personas all of the time that are not your own persona. So assume a persona that loves terraforming Mars and see where that gets you, because that can actually lead to some really cool things.
Yeah, or disaster.
And the other thing is that certain games will appeal to certain people. Find the games that appeal to you. Find other people that like those games. And then if those games start turning directions where they're not fun for you anymore, honestly, I think you gotta bail. I don't think you owe anything to anybody to keep trying to trudge your way through something you're just not enjoying.
Correct. And you can very probably, because there's so many different games out there these days, find that thing that you loved of yesteryear in that other game you used to play in something new.
Yeah, and luckily we're in an era of tabletop where there's a consistently number of high-quality, awesome games coming out all the time. So I do agree in the sense that attempt to find the fun, even just for the other people involved, if nothing else, and find the games that are fun.
And I wonder,
It boils down to that.
if you're doing like casual play, which I love more and more these days, if you and I came to each other and said, all right, here's actually what we don't like about Destiny, let's not
House
use that
rules.
stuff.
Yeah.
Let's start doing that.
It's
right?
like, hey, let's play without Ray. How about
yeah,
that?
let's play that right.
Catch me outside. Well, it's time for the best time of the week, which is Ask Covenant. You can use the hashtag Ask Covenant to ask us questions. We will answer them here on the show. And we're going to get to the first question, which is from Patrick Luckern on Twitter. What equipment do you use to record games and the podcast with? Any recommendations on what to use if I'm just starting out? This is beyond me.
What equipment do we use? We use this for the podcast. This is
This?
Zoom. What is that? A H4, H3, H5. It's one of these.
With
So
live
they
mics?
basically have a series of HN devices, and the numbers tell you kind of like how much more advanced they get. So I mean, for the longest time, we just had a table recorder, and then we went to like a H4n, and then we went to plugging external mics into the H4n. And now we're doing this the H5 or H6, I think, and we've got 4
the quantum.
inputs now, and we're using Audio-Technica lav mics. So our setup has consistently evolved with our resources, which is clear, I think, at this point.
Like the sound of our voices.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest going out and just like, spending thousands of dollars before you have an audience.
Sure.
I would
A table mic will
diminishing
do just
returns?
fine, right?
Yeah, a table mic will do just fine. Like the more money you spend, it's minor improvements. Like as you go up the chain,
As life is.
yeah.
going from a table mic to any kind of a lav mic is going to be significant.
Can't go from a
right?
Ford Focus to a Tesla.
And then to record games and stuff, we use the GoPros and just DSLR cameras, like 70D,
Canons.
60D. You can go as high as you want, but I mean, cameras as they get more expensive are generally working with ISO values, so you can do night vision a lot better, which is not usually applicable. Some game stores it is. And then you're past that, and you make sure you're recording in HD.
Because
1080.
ultimately, like when you're filming a game,
4K eventually.
you're just filming a game. There's no motion. There's no focus in focus. You just need a singular point of focus.
The real juice is afterwards. The post production, that's After Effects and Audition and all of
various
the
technologies
all
and
the Adobe
filters
things.
there.
Yeah.
Laundry list.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, that's what we use. Any recommendation what to use starting out? Roland's a really good audio brand. Of course, Zoom's a really good audio brand. So I would do that, and then just any kind of camera will work.
Yeah.
It's
Your
just
iPhone?
it's so much more. It's so much
Sometimes.
more too about like how you set up the shot. What are your angles? Do you have any kind of lighting? Even if you don't have lights, like just be by a window. Those kinds of things.
What was
Lighting
that thing
and
that we did
post-work.
the Steven Speaks
Oh, I forgot I'm
with?
supposed to talk to the camera on this.
That's
kind
right.
of
That's
things,
right.
'cause
We did
we're
it
recording podcast
on a
here,
flip,
guys. I'm just talking
on a flip camera.
Flip cam. It's Jonathan's personal favorite camera.
Yeah,
He's
of all
thumbs
time.
down
Hates
in
it.
the background now.
He hates it, that's
just,
fine.
just Google Steven Speaks, and John will be really happy that you found that video. All right, second question from Vincent J. Rubio on YouTube.
He's a long time YouTube. I've seen his name a lot.
Have you guys thought about expanding or franchising?
Zach, you feel this. I actually need. I remember I
gonna
pulled
go
a couple
somewhere?
thof things from the
stepping
AMA
away
that
from the table?
I need to pull up.
Okay,
on the computer,
Steven's
yeah.
going to step away.
Don't forget to unmic.
Yeah,
Watch
he
your
can
cord.
reach.
I can
Record's
actually
long
reach.
enough.
Yeah.
Well,
See, they're wired. You could go wireless, but it just costs more.
It does. That's kind of a give and take here. So, have we thought about expanded franchising? Absolutely. This is something we intend on doing. We plan on doing. Franchising, not so much. Us, control of the experience and what we're offering. Our brand is very important to us. And so the idea of having any sort of not control of that is terrifying to all of us. But yeah, definitely expansion is on the table and something we're actively looking at. And time will tell when and how and where we get there. But definitely stay tuned for that.
Okay, so I made a note. This was from Reddit, so you can hear me. This is the power of lav mics.
Whoa.
Yes.
I made a note.
Get back in frame.
Shout out to Alex Chase on Reddit, who just simply requested it. It's amazing what you get if you just ask for it.
He asked for a shout out.
Yeah, huge shout out to Alex Chase, fan of ours, and it's really cool to hear his comments and feedback on Reddit. And then also Tycho Sean is the Reddit user. Said that meeting us at Gen Con was a real pleasure. So that's really awesome to hear.
Well, thank you to both of you.
Also said say hi to Ryan for me, which makes me wonder.
Ryan.
Well, now you're saying hi to Ryan on a video, so it will forever continue.
How does anybody know Ryan on the internet? What's he been up
maybe
to?
it's someone from Spokane, Washington.
Oh, could be. Or it could be a local
Ryan hates when I say
person.
Spokane.
Could be Clemens. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never know.
not.
All right, final question for the show from D Decay on Reddit.
Oh, from the AMA.
Yeah, which is, can you explain the significance of the terms daddy and Bugatti and their relevance to board gaming? I was not ready for this to show up.
Their relevance to board gaming is the most critical part of this question. They are irrelevant entirely.
They are irrelevant, but the story behind daddy and Bugatti, if you ever hear us say dad mode or daddy or Bugatti in any of our
Dad
content,
really is
dad,
the one that I go to. Daddy
Dad.
feels a little bit weird. Like
Dad,
that kind of is a weird
That one's
term.
already taken.
Yeah, don't like that one.
Yeah. So it's got a mixed signal on the origin story of all this, but I think it's somehow, whether it was you DJing or somewhere I heard the song,
I definitely had, I had fallen in love with the song.
there's a line of the song that is, girl walks into the club and asks, what you driving?
Yeah.
And I say,
Bugatti.
Bugatti.
Yeah.
And so
Do,
at some point
do.
in X-Wing, I started flying the Decimator. And for whatever reason, that song was in my head. And it was like, I'm going to start calling this Bugatti. And then I walked in one day and just was mumbling. Girl walks in the club. And Grant, who's one of our local players, one of the Vader's finest guys, he was like, Bugatti. And then,
Players, he's an employee.
He's now a part-time.
and part-time employee. Well, I'm thinking of him back
in the
2
day, yeah,
years
in
ago. When he was doing, that's where my brain's at. But anyways, he said Bugatti, and the way he said it sounded like something good just happened, right? It's like, Bugatti?
Yeah. Yo.
I was like, he's surprised. Anyway, so then we were playing X-Wing that day, and like a good roll happened, and I was like, Bugatti? And it never stopped from
It's like
there.
wildfire.
It's catching
Those kinds
on.
of things just
All the
catch
kids
on
are doing
like
it.
crazy. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, it's sort of like the air horn lately in the videos.
So yeah, it's an inside joke.
But
I hope to be
Bugatti,
part
and
of
then
one someday.
Dad, I literally think came from Jesse and Grant.
It did, solely. And I looked it up. So this was actually the thing that happened back in the hip cat days of like 77 Sunset Strip. Like, hey, daddy-o. Like, yo.
You were telling me about this.
Yeah. And so I actually looked up, like, because we had started saying it. And I was like, what is this? Where could it come from? And it said that it literally originated from that period. It was short for daddy-o, like, Dad, yo, let's go get some burgers down at the drive-thru and cruise the strip kind of stuff. So maybe it came from that. Or maybe it's just a reference to a father figure. I mean, who could know? The spectrum is immense.
Who knows? But if we say dad mode,
are we gonna split hairs?
It just means dad mode.
It started with that, and then whenever something good would happen, it was daddy. And that, that would just
well, it was
take
more.
It
was
or
more.
leave it.
I remember Jesse being. I heard him say, "Daddy."
Daddy, yeah, that's right. So
It's like rolled like a big roll in Destiny. It was like Daddy.
And then it was dad mode.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
But dad mode is what happens whenever something is about to potentially give you a daddy, it sounds
Moment.
like.
Yeah.
So like,
who knows?
I'm going to attach this thing, Vader's dad mode now.
Oh, he's dad mode. He's about to be just bringing the pain.
You have to have a dad roll.
It's such a versatile phrase. I
It
had
really
no
is.
idea.
But
It's been around for thousands of years.
really the thing about that is just stick to Bugatti. And if we say dad mode or whatever, just
Any permutation.
just
there.
nod and laugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's all I got on
What,
that
is there a
one.
stepdad mode? Or
Get
anything?
ready
Oh, dude, that's so good. Oh, you're going stepdad mode.
I was not trying to contribute.
Is that blinks or is that better?
Stepdad. Wow. Or is
guess-
it better? It could be an upgrade or a downgrade.
I guess we'll throw it out
depends.
to Jesse and Grant and see what they do with it, right?
I love
Just
it.
roll over.
Stepdad mode is great.
Now, but we have to say we were planning on doing a shout to the people who have contributed. So we usually ask a question at the end of the podcast. And
do.
then you guys answer that on the comments, which has been
Never again.
awesome.
Yeah.
So we read all of those, which felt a little selfish. So we want to start sharing those answers back with the audience, which is a cool feature, but then also letting people know who don't read the comments what other players have said about how they prepare for an event or these kinds of things. So we fully intend on doing that. We didn't carve out a section this time, but leave your answer to the following question.
I was gonna say we're about to ask a question.
We're gonna come back next time and hit it.
We're gonna pick our favorites,
Hi, McKesser.
and
Yeah.
we're gonna read them and mention them and talk about them on the next show. So
We're evolving.
before I even ask a question, before we get out of here, remember #AskCovenant. That's where we get these questions. That's how we answer them. If you want your question answered on the show, use #AskCovenant. So the question for you, if you're listening or watching this, is what makes a game the most fun for you?
Great question.
We'd love to know what you enjoy most about these games, and leave it in the comments, and we'll pick our favorites and talk about them on the next show. Until the next show, keep playing.